Today's topic is the 10 components of cricket fitness. Now, this is a list that took us a while to come up with, didn't it, James? We backwards and forwards, and wrangled over this for many, many hours. Do you want to tell a little bit of that story before we move on to the actual components of fitness?
Yeah, I think this is a good one because this is centred around cricket. It's because of cricket that we came up with this system of training in the first place. So, for those who aren't aware, we've been in the health and fitness industry for a very long time, over 20 years. And my speciality was essentially law enforcement and military, I think is the best way to say it, from my background working in those areas. And it worked a lot with everyday people. But in 2016, 2017, I moved to Australia. I was in Australia and I wanted to get back into playing cricket because I stopped playing cricket stupidly for like over 10 years of my life. And I wanted to get back into it. So just how it happened that I had a chance to go down there and play some cricket in Melbourne. And I felt the most unathletic, the most detrained and most useless player I think I've ever felt in my life. It's like I'd never held a bat or bowled a ball with.
And you got some sledging, right?
I got literally. I got chucked on the nets, and all these quips are coming just peppering me. I got literally peppered black and blue, and it was horrendous. But it led to a discussion of what is athleticism. I'd gone down a route of strength training only and focusing on maybe powerlifting, because that was the group I was working with, and that's what we were focusing on back then. But it was a big wake-up call with me into this, to try and help create this idea of what it means to be athletic, because I wanted to discover a way to make me athletic again. I want to go back to my athletic youth, my athletic training in my 30s and get back to being fit, healthy and athletic again so I could play cricket and not look like a complete dick. I think that's the best way to put it. Right?
Let's just get more balanced, right? Get a more balanced physical presence, as you say, because both you and myself, we've gone down, as you say, a little bit more of the powerlifting, obviously kettlebell, strength style of stuff. And although obviously you get very strong doing that, it doesn't necessarily mean you're athletic, does it?
No. And for those who know me, I like to work in systems and logic. That's my computer science background, potentially. It's the way my brain likes to work. But it's also a way for us as a team to come together and focus on how we're going to help the athletes. We're all talking the same language, right? Because that's the most important thing. Is it's all great when us as always coaches do our own separate thing, but it's not always in the best interest of the athletes at hand. So we've all got to be talking from the same hymn sheet or singing from the same hymn sheet, talking the same language and refer to each other. And that was the problems we had in our team back then, trying to find it. So the first thing we had to do was define what athleticism is. And Google was a terrible, terrible place to find it because there was no definition. If you type in athleticism now, our sister company Strength Matters helps you define it, right? As a good way to find out. And it's a big part of what this model of fitness and components of fitness of cricketers comes from. So what we did first and foremost was list out all the components of fitness we could think of that we thought would make somebody athletic. What are the qualities that make somebody athletic? And in no particular order, it was strength, aerobic capacity, speed, agility, mobility, stability, balance, coordination, mental resilience, power. All these different names were coming out, but there's no logic, reason, or rhyme to them, right? These are all great. We know we need to work on these, and we agreed on these fundamentals, but where do we start? Where do we start to like build me back up from scratch, right? That was the question we tried to find. Okay, so once we had these, and we were happy on these 10 key components, right? The 10 core components of fitness for cricket. We then started putting together in a logical method. We did it in a pyramid system and a layer system. So I think I'll share my screen now is the best way to put it.
Yeah. As you do that, I was going to say, we came up with these 10 components, but there's no sort of logic to it because most people, when you ask them if you went through the 10 components and they're like, yeah, I'll start with strength and speed and power. And it's like, well, hang on a minute. I don't think that is, this is what we realised, that isn't necessarily the best place to start. It's a sexy place that everyone wants to start, all the good stuff, but not necessarily the right place to start.
Exactly, and that's what we see all the time. So for those watching on YouTube, and for those listening to the car, go back to the YouTube, or we'll put a link to the blog post that you can relate to this as well back in the show notes. But you can see on the screen here now, so what we came up with is this pyramid system, the hierarchy, the pyramid of performance for us. And we have layer 1, layer 2, layer 3. Layer 1 is the foundation, the bottom of the pyramid. And down there you have to own mobility, stability, balance, and coordination. Layer 2 is strength and aerobic capacity, right? That is just basic your ability to have stamina. I've said it again. Okay. Stamina. Right, basic strength, basic aerobic capacity, and layer 3, the fun, sexy stuff that everyone wants to do, particularly if you watch CrossFit, right, or you see the athletes just doing these crazy catches.
Well, never
now
mind
in the field.
CrossFit, the Olympic Games that's just been on,
Yeah,
obviously.
Olympic Games too. You have that too. So you've got power, speed, agility, and anaerobic capacity. Now, the overarching theme for all of this is mental resilience, which as a cricketer you need, right? When you're batting, when you're bowling, when you're recovering from injury, because lots of people get injured all the time. As a team, you need to have mental resilience to get through and win the end of the end of the day. But the point is, these are components, and we start at layer 1. And what we see with most cricketers is they lack mobility, they lack stability, and they lack balance and coordination. That's what I had back in the day, because I was going for all the fun, sexy stuff, the power, strength, speed, and agility stuff. But I was putting it on a rocky. I'm putting it onto. You're layering it onto rocky foundations, essentially, right? I was building on a house of sand, so I was getting injured a lot when I was trying to make my comeback, and that's what we saw with all the athletes all the time. And so many cricketers don't own their mobility, they don't own basic stability, and they don't own balance and coordination. All that we need for cricket. Mobility is a great example. You need to be able to have T-spine rotation to smash the ball out of the park, to be able to bowl, right? If you haven't got those, you're struggling. Then we look at basic strength and aerobic capacity. Strength meaning, can they hold a 2-minute plank? Can they hang from a bar for 60 seconds? Most of the time, no. We also about grip, abs, and glutes being the core fundamentals of strength training. Most of them didn't have the basics in place. Yet they were trying to do all these fun box jumps, Olympic lifts, all this sort of stuff here at the top end. But what we find is when we work with the athletes from the ground up, we develop healthier athletes that are more resilient to injury, become stronger, fitter, but also recover faster and become more mentally resilient long term. And that's our pyramid when it comes to fitness. And it comes back to the 3-pronged attack when we were coaching cricketers, right? We want to look at the mental side of things first, right? We then want to look at the physical side of things, and then we look at the technical and tactical side of things. Everyone goes to the technical and tactical at the top, but they forget the physical and the mental side of things. But if we focus on those 2 areas first, it makes the tactical and the technical side of things so much easier, because your body can get into position, you're fit enough to do more drills, more repetition work, and you recover faster to go again and again and again, because sometimes it's all about bowling more balls, hitting more balls too, at the simplest level at the top of practicing.
Exactly, and people may be looking at this thinking, "Oh, but I want to do the sexy power, speed, and agility stuff at the top. How long does it take to get there?" Well, how long is a piece of string? You can't really answer that question until you've gone through the assessments. But in terms of like relating it back to performance on the field, as you say, throwing or bowling faster, hitting harder. If you just look at layer 1, mobility, stability, balance, and coordination. If you just, as you say, improve your T-spine rotation, improve your balance so you're a little bit more solid, so you can drive, get that power from all the way from the floor through the hip, you might already, without doing any strength, without doing any aerobic work, anything like that, you might already be able to bat, hit harder, further, bowl faster, throw it harder, more accurately, just by addressing those components at the bottom, right? I think that's important for people to understand that, because they're looking at the next layers up thinking, I want to get there. Why do I need to bother doing that? Well, you do the basics and you're already, leaps and bounds ahead, right?
Exactly. So everything comes from the core. If we're looking at this now, if we're looking at basics of throwing, bowling, fitting, batting, right? What I'm seeing with a lot of cricketers is they miss the center element, the core piece that holds everything together and allows the power to come from it. They haven't got a core. They may have 6-packs on show, but it's not working in unison with their hamstrings, with their glutes, with their quads, with their hip flexors, right? So it starts in the core here. Then you got the 4 knots, the 2 shoulders and the 2 hips, right? If they're knotted, for example, and you haven't got much range of mobility and you've got a weak core, well, you're at risk of so much injury and you're missing so much power potential as well. So it comes back to the basics all the time. We go back to whenever we're doing assessments with any athlete or cricketer who comes to us, anyone on cricket coaching, we assess them on those 3 things. We look at the physical side of things, we look at the mental side of things, and then we look at the technical, and we put it all together as part of a training program so they can work towards it. Because that's the biggest mistake I see with coaches a lot of the time, particularly cricket coaches. They just focus on the technical side of things, right? And they only come for that 1 hour session and they go away with no plan. But what we try and do is we put them all together. How are they prepping for their mental game? How are they prepping for their physical game? How are they prepping for their nutrition? And how are they prepping for their technical and tactical execution of what they're playing as well, right? And that's how we approach it in terms of cricket coaching. But the fitness side of things is so important to us. It's what we geek out on the most, and hopefully we've not lost people in too much technical stuff now, but we could go down that route. But it comes down to systems and the ability to apply the system of training. And we need that first, because once you have owned these areas, getting into position for all the technical side of things makes it so much easier. Fast bowlers, a lot of the time, particularly older bowlers, they can't get their arm up, right, to almost like touching their ear. Right? When they're bowling, their arm is so low down, it's like a more round arm slinger type action, because they haven't got the mobility. Or they're so tense and taut inside all the muscles here, they haven't released it for a long time. Right?
Exactly. So improve your mobility, straight away you improve your bowling action.
Higher angle, becomes faster, becomes more accurate, rather than becoming the slingy side of things. So that's just a very quick tip there off the top of my head. So there you go. But that's our 10 components of fitness, why it's important, and hopefully all cricketers out there looking to improve their game will start to adapt it and adhere to it in the long run.
There we go. And if you want to read a little bit more about our 10 components of fitness, we will put a link to the blog in the show notes. But that is it for today. Please don't forget to rate, review and subscribe. And if you would like our free training plan, then go to cricketmatters.com/train.
Actually, they can also get the high performance handbook, which tells them in way more detail. So there you go. Go to cricketmatters.com. On the blog there, you get the high performance handbook too. So that's 2-in-1 for you guys. Freebies. Have some of that. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt.
Exactly. Thank you very much.